If you're pro-choice, you're typically on the correct side of any social issue. But in this video, we're going to do a deep dive into the sinister origins of the abortion industry and the legacy for us now. And that's today on the Dr. Joe Show. We're becoming pretty used to these professional protesters who turn up to rallies on any given topic, and they always seem to kind of have the same uniform, don't they? So check out this recent Pride March in Melbourne, where you've actually got St Kilda's primary school students walking alongside these trans activists in all manner of undress. It's clearly not appropriate for kids to be there, but there they are with their rainbows. And then, walk down any university corridor at a GO8 on campus, and on the office door of faculty, you'll see the virtue signalling ally, 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 ally. Any email signature from any kind of corporate typically will have the ally sign off. You go to any kind of protest, whether it's on Black Lives Matter or climate change or women's marches, and you'll see the rainbows, the kefirs, the Palestinian scarves. You'll see the masks. They're always wearing masks for some reasons. And this is also the case for pro-abortion marches. And so, in Adelaide last year, there were 2 pro-abortion marches. They had about 300 people at both. It was really poorly attended, but you had these professional protesters, rent-a-crowd, turning up. And the signage to advertise the march, I had to take a photo of it as I was walking down North Terrace. It was Stop the Bigot Bill. If you're on the radical left, you pride yourself on being anti-establishment. You're rebellious. You're on the side of human rights, on the side of diversity and inclusion. You are on the side of Black Lives Matter, climate change, pro-women, any sort of new craze that has hopped into people's imaginations and taken over the mainstream press. You're on that cause and you're wearing that shirt and you're flying that flag. But here's the rub if you are pro-abortion and you're going to a Stop the Bigot Bill protest, which, by the way, the bill just allowed babies in the 3rd trimester to be delivered alive instead of being intentionally killed by being injected with poison and then delivered dead. That's all that bill, so-called Bigot Bill, did. But anyway, leaving that aside, if you are pro-abortion, you're not anti-bigotry. The very definition of abortion is that you are okay with killing one group of human beings. This hypocrisy becomes crystal clear when we think about the 2 big founders of abortion globally, Margaret Sanger and Marie Stopes. And we don't talk about them enough because there's essentially a cover-up about where abortion came from. But the 2 biggest abortion businesses in the world, Planned Parenthood, the founder of that was Margaret Sanger, and then Marie Stopes International, the founder of that was Marie Stopes. So let's have a look at who these women were and what they wanted to achieve. Margaret Sanger wanted to create a world where we didn't have any disability. And that wasn't because she was so into supporting medical research to cure disabilities, to find ways to help people with disabilities live without that disability hampering them. No, to be clear, she wanted a world without disabled people. She just wanted to kill anyone with a disability. Margaret Sanger also didn't like Black people. She said, in her own words, we don't want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. Now, using the N-word can actually get you fired by the woke mob, as it did to this poor teacher who was actually Black herself and used this word in class and got fired for it. But, for the founder of big abortion in the US, that was fine. Her agenda was, let's use abortion and let's plant abortion clinics in Black neighbourhoods so that we can exterminate, quote unquote, the Negro population. And in case you don't believe me, let's take a look at this from her very own mouth.
Do you believe in sin? When I say believe, I don't mean believe in committing sin. Do you believe there is such a thing as sin?
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin.
So for her, the very worst thing you can do is allow human beings to be born who are disabled and have some kind of disability, who are Black, who, in her mind, she's got bigotry towards all of these particular groups of people. And this founder of big abortion, Margaret Sanger, in her mind, the greatest evil you can do is to allow these people, these human beings to be born. She thinks that the right thing to do, or good in her mind, is killing these people because of these attributes that they have. And in case you think that's an anomaly, that's just Margaret Sanger who formed Planned Parenthood, but, this isn't typical of the roots of the abortion industry worldwide. Well, Marie Stopes, the other founder of the biggest abortion business in the world, she had very, very similar ideas. So let's take a look at some of the things that she has said. So Marie Stopes was a life member of the Eugenics Society. Now, you wouldn't dare call something like that these days, but the Eugenics Society was just about getting rid of people who were deemed less desirable. In fact, she went on to found her own society for constructive birth control and racial progress, whose stated aims included the prevention of procreation that would result in diseased or degenerate offspring. And similar to Sanger, Marie Stopes viewed the handicapped as weak and as a drain on resources, and that really by having these people around who are undesirable, it was preventing everybody else from getting the resources that they needed. So she actually says that we need laws that allowed the hopelessly rotten and racially diseased, so those are her words, hopelessly rotten and racially diseased, to be sterilised. And she wrote fiercely against interracial marriage. She was preoccupied with the unfit, what she deemed as the unfit, and she wanted to improve the biological quality of Britain's population. And unlike, Planned Parenthood, which has tried to distance itself a little bit from its founder, Margaret Sanger. I mean, they still have the Margaret Sanger Award, so they haven't really distanced themselves properly, but they've got some kind of woke statement on their website. Marie Stopes hasn't done that. They have rebranded. When Black Lives Matter was happening, they rebranded themselves to MSI International, but they still have her picture all over their website. They still talk about her, so they haven't really distanced themselves either. This is where abortions come from. And you might be thinking, okay, well, this is where abortions come from, but it's not where we are today. But let's have a look at what Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said when he was asked a question about whether it would be okay to kill babies with autism just because they've got autism.
If a person decided to terminate their fetus solely because giving birth would result in an autistic child, would you consider that to be an ableist act?
Oh, gee, that's a tough question. I think from my perspective, in terms of a woman, part of the principle that I have is that those matters are a woman's right to choose to determine control over her own body. And I would be reluctant, as someone who, by definition, will never be in that situation with regard to childbirth, I'd be reluctant to give, advice to someone in that situation. I think that that's a principle that's pretty important.
That makes me feel sick, Albo. The fact that you think it is okay to kill a baby with autism just because they've got autism. Let's put this a different way. Imagine you were asked whether it would be okay for a white woman who's had sex with an Aboriginal man to have an abortion because their baby was Aboriginal. You would just say that's wrong. You would just know that that is the wrong thing to do. And she might be concerned, perhaps quite justifiably, that her baby would have a worse life because they were Aboriginal, because there's higher rates of incarceration, greater socioeconomic disadvantage, but you would just know. You would know that it'd be wrong to kill a baby just because they're Indigenous. And so here, when you're saying it's okay to kill a baby just because they've got autism, that's you saying that babies with autism, people with autism, are less valuable, they're less human than other babies, Indigenous babies, for example. And that's just sick. It's a sick attitude. That's the legacy of a eugenicist abortion movement founded by Margaret Sanger and Marie Stopes, who wanted to exterminate black people and kill handicapped people. This isn't just Albo. The eugenicist attitude that people with disabilities are not really human and therefore should be killed is systematic within the abortion industry in this country. Let's take a look at this mother telling her story.
7-month-old baby Ali lives with Down syndrome.
So even just that, guys, 7-month-old baby Ali lives with Down syndrome. Imagine if they described me, 42-year-old woman, Joanna Howe, lives with brown skin. You just couldn't say it. You wouldn't do it because it's just racist, just like this is ableist from this ABC reporter. But let's keep going.
Zoe O'Hare was 21 weeks pregnant and teaching when she was given the diagnosis over the phone.
I broke down in front of 20 kids after that before I could even say anything or process it or even breathe, he said, "Oh, I've scheduled." And the first thing I replied was, "Scheduled what?" And he said, "A termination for tomorrow." Shiki.
The family was part of a survey that found half of new parents of children with Down syndrome faced discrimination.
Her experience isn't anomalous. So many parents of children with Down syndrome tell us that the way it gets delivered to them by these so-called doctors is, "I'm sorry, you've got a child with Down syndrome, let me schedule the abortion." And in fact, this couple was offered an abortion 15 times during the pregnancy just because their child had a diagnosis of Down syndrome. Never mind the fact that people with Down syndrome report that those families are happier, siblings are happier, parents' marriages are healthier. There is no reason to kill a child with Down syndrome ever. There's no medical reason. And yet we live in a country where 90%, 9 out of 10 babies who receive this diagnosis of Down syndrome in utero get killed through abortion. So this video today has shown you the shocking truth of the abortion industry, the way it was founded, its legacy today that goes right up to the top, to the Prime Minister, and is systematic within the way the abortion industry is practiced. People who are pro-choice pride themselves on being on the correct side of things, but you're not on the correct side of this one. I used to be pro-choice. I know this firsthand, that the brainwashing that you receive, that abortion is pro-women and we need it for our empowerment, and therefore we're on the right side of history. Let me just be really clear, you're not on the right side of history. If you've stuck along with this video, that means you're open-minded, you're willing to at least listen to alternative viewpoints. And I'm just going to ask everybody before we finish up today, subscribe to this channel, because the purpose of it is to tell you things that you're just not going to find out in the mainstream media, and to uncover the data and the hidden truth on the abortion industry. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.